Many call him Rome's first African emperor, but the truth is far more complex. Septimius Severus was born into the richest family in the richest province of the Roman Empire. He was born in a place called Leptis Magna in North Africa in 145 AD. His family were olive oil magnates. They were extremely wealthy. Today, we don't think of North Africa as the wealthiest region in the world, but during the Roman Empire, North Africa was a powerhouse, was an economic powerhouse, and a lot of people from Europe were actually migrating to colonies and cities that were growing in North Africa at the time, like Leptis Magna, where Septimius Severus was from. His father is said to be of Phoenician descent, a Punic ancestry, meaning that he was a native North African, maybe even related to the Carthaginians ethnically, which would make him Phoenician. And the Phoenicians, of course, were originally from the Levant. They were from modern-day Lebanon, but because they were such great seafarers, they had set up colonies all over the Mediterranean, like Carthage. And Leptis Magna, before the Romans took over, was a Carthaginian city. So a lot of these inhabitants of the city were Phoenician mixed with Roman, just like Septimius Severus, because while his father was Phoenician, his mother was from Italy. She was from a wealthy Italian family who migrated to Leptis Magna for a better life. So technically he was born in Africa, he was born in North Africa and grew up in North Africa, but ethnically he was half Phoenician and half Italian. Another interesting thing about Septimius Severus is that when you look at his statues, it gives you an idea of how he might have looked with the beard and the curly hair. But at the same time, this can be problematic because once he becomes emperor later on, he models himself off of Marcus Aurelius. He will even rename his son, Caracalla, after Marcus Aurelius. And he does basically everything he can to kind of make people think that he's related to Marcus Aurelius in some kind of way when it comes to power, to legitimize himself. And you can even see on the statues that he looks like Marcus Aurelius in his statues. He has a similar beard, he has a similar hairstyle, even a similar face, you could say. And is this a coincidence? Or did he tell his sculptors, whoever was making his statues, to make him look like Marcus Aurelius to make him more legitimate in the eyes of the Roman people? Septimius Severus was very educated. He would have had the best Roman education, and he learned different languages. He could speak Greek, as well as the native North African language, the Punic languages, and Latin, of course. But for the rest of his life, he would maintain his very thick, distinctive North African accent whenever he spoke Latin. And many of the ancient writers mentioned this, how he had this kind of harsh, very thick North African accent that he was proud of in a way, and he never tried to change his accent to sound more like people who were from Rome, the city of Rome itself. There's one story that shows how connected he was to his North African Phoenician roots, and that's later on when he's fighting a war against one of his rivals in the east, in Asia Minor, the place where the Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca fled to and later died. And when Septimius Severus passed through this area, he ordered that the tomb of Hannibal should be covered with the very best marble. He even honored Hannibal Barca. He may have even seen Hannibal Barca as one of his ancestors. As a young man, he was ambitious. He moved to Rome, and he became a senator under Marcus Aurelius. He worked his way up, and eventually he was sent to a military position in Syria. And while he was in Syria, the governor of Syria was a guy called Pertinax. And Pertinax took Septimius Severus under his wing and became like his mentor and would help Septimius Severus throughout the rest of his career. And while Septimius Severus was in Syria, he was already married to a woman. He didn't have any children with her, but while in Syria, he would meet his future wife Julia Domna, who was from this very powerful royal priestly family in Syria. He only met her there, but he would later marry this woman, have children with her, and they would stay married for the rest of their lives. After Syria, he worked his way up through the hierarchy, and he was promoted to be the governor of the province of Lugdunum in Gaul, which is modern-day Lyon in France. And while there, at this time, his first wife died. So he invited Julia Domna, who he met in Syria, to come to Gaul where he was stationed, and married her. And within a year, he had children with her. That's where his son Caracalla was born. And so yeah, he started his family, his life was coming together. And pretty soon after that, he was promoted again to another province, which is called Pannonia Superior. And this was kind of in modern day Austria and Hungary. This was on the edge of the Roman Empire. Beyond here, you had very savage barbarian tribes like the Sarmatians and other Germanic tribes who were giving a lot of trouble to the Romans. And so to be a governor there, you had to be a very tough, very strict disciplinarian to manage that. While there, he gained a lot of military experience, and the legions from Pannonia were some of the best in the empire because they were constantly tested against these barbarian tribes. And they were the most hardened and the most elite soldiers in the empire who were under the command of Septimius Severus. At the same time, when he started his career, Marcus Aurelius was the emperor. And of course, Marcus Aurelius died and his son Commodus came in, who was this kind of psychotic, narcissistic emperor. He didn't care about running the empire. He only cared about gladiatorial games and actually taking part in these games. And he would dress up as Hercules, wearing a lion's head, kind of LARPing as a gladiator, and everyone hated him. He was a bit of a maniac. He ordered executions, even executions of his own family members, and eventually he was assassinated. And after he was assassinated, Pertinax, Septimius Severus's mentor, who had helped him all these years, was asked to become the next emperor, which he did. When he became emperor, the first thing that happened was the Praetorian Guard, who at this point had become corrupt. They had become lazy, especially under the rule of Commodus. They became used to their easy life and being paid extravagantly and not really doing much of what their job entailed. The Praetorians went to Pertinax and they said, "You're the new emperor. As you're the new emperor, the way things work here is you're gonna have to pay us some money to keep us happy, and if you don't, well, we might just kill you." And Pertinax, being an honorable man, he kind of modeled himself after Marcus Aurelius. He was completely against this, and he said, "There's no way I'm gonna pay you guys. You're corrupt. You know what is this nonsense?" And he refused. And so after only 3 months of rule, Pertinax was assassinated by the Praetorian Guard. And another guy stepped in, a very wealthy Roman man named Didius Julianus stepped in. He was happy to pay the Praetorians to bribe them to become the emperor. This corrupt Praetorian Guard were fine with that too. And so that's what you ended up with. You ended up with this new emperor, Didius Julianus, who pretty much bribed his way to becoming the emperor. This is known as the period of 5 emperors, because you would have, after Commodus, this chaotic period where so many people came and started to claim the throne. And when Septimius Severus heard Didius Julianus, he heard that Pertinax was assassinated, his mentor, and then this nobody just came in and bribed his way to become the emperor. He wasn't going to stand for that. He took his legions, the most hardened legionaries in the whole empire that he had in Pannonia, marched straight to Rome in lightning speed and executed Didius Julianus, killed him, and put himself on the throne. And that's how he became the emperor. And nobody could mess with him at that point, especially in Rome. And the first thing he did, the first thing Septimius Severus did when he got to Rome, was he took all the Praetorian guards, lined them up in a square, stripped them naked, all 5,000 of them, and he could have killed them. He had 25,000, hardened legionaries, against these 5,000 Praetorian guards who at this point were not even elite warriors. They were just corrupt and lazy. He could have killed them, but he didn't. He banishes them to never return to Rome. And he creates a new Praetorian Guard made up of his hand-picked legionaries, elite hardened warriors from the Danube, from this region of Pannonia. So he ends up creating this extremely loyal and extremely tough bodyguard to protect him. Not only that, he would also increase the size of the Praetorian Guard from 5,000 men to 10,000. And that's one of the reasons why he wasn't just a brute, he wasn't just a military man. He was clever, he was savvy, and he was calculated. And he understood everything that was going on. He could see through the corruption. And he took really good care of the soldiers. He took care of the military. He increased the soldiers' pay. He allowed them to get married. Before, there was a ban that prohibited Roman soldiers from getting married while they were in the army. But all of these reforms, increasing their pay and everything, came at a cost. And he had to debase the Roman currency to do all of this. And this would have long-term detrimental effects on the Roman economy in the future. It would never recover. But nonetheless, in the year 193, Septimius Severus had done the impossible and secured the throne. But his fight was far from over. There were still two more rivals standing in his way, each of them claiming the Roman Empire for themselves. The war for Rome had only just begun. If you like that video, please consider subscribing, leave a like, and I'll be finishing the story of Septimius Severus and covering more on ancient Rome in the coming weeks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.